They say life can change in the blink of an eye, but nobody could have prepared for the insanity that unfolded when one woman from the HOA decided to escalate a petty feud into something unthinkable. Imagine this. You're just living your life, tending to your property, and suddenly you're branded as a criminal because a neighbor decided her word mattered more than truth. That's exactly what happened the day the infamous HOA Karen called the cops. Not to report a break-in, not to stop a crime, but to try to get someone shot simply for opening their own garage. And what happened next? It spiraled out of control in ways no one could have ever predicted. Because by the end of that day, the governor himself ended up in the middle of this nightmare, inside the garage, with bullets flying. The story starts with a man who lived on his own property, the kind of person who minded his business, paid his dues, and didn't cause trouble for anyone. But trouble has a way of finding people when an HOA Karen is in the mix. She had made it her mission to patrol the neighborhood like it was her kingdom, watching everyone's moves, timing when they left, when they arrived, and even when they dared to open their garage doors. Her obsession with control grew so strong that one day, when the homeowner walked toward his garage, she snapped. She called the police in a frenzy, fabricating a story that someone dangerous was lurking. She didn't say, "Oh, he's opening his own garage." No, she exaggerated. She twisted words. She wanted to see him punished, and in her mind, the most dramatic outcome would have been the police using lethal force. Now, think about that for a second. Someone so bitter, so power-hungry, and so reckless that they would willingly summon the kind of response that could take an innocent life, all over a garage door. That call set everything in motion. Within minutes, squad cars were rolling in. Officers surrounded the property as if they were taking down a fugitive. The homeowner tried to explain himself. He had his ID. He had proof that it was his house, his garage, his property. But when fear is manufactured and hysteria is fueled, reason doesn't always prevail. The officers' hands hovered near their weapons. Tension grew. One wrong move, one twitch, and things could have gone fatally wrong. And then came the twist no one could have imagined. Just as officers confronted the homeowner, a black SUV pulled up near the property. Out stepped a recognizable figure, the governor. Yes, the governor himself. Turns out, he had been scheduled to meet someone in that very neighborhood for a private matter. Wrong place, wrong time. Or maybe fate had decided to intertwine two completely separate worlds into one storm. The governor walked toward the garage, oblivious to the chaos already brewing. Officers turned, startled by his presence. Confusion erupted. Commands were shouted. In that frenzy, shots rang out. Bullets that were never supposed to fly ended up hitting the very person who held the highest office in the state. The governor was down, inside the garage. The homeowner froze in shock. He couldn't believe what just unfolded in front of his eyes. He wasn't the one under fire anymore. Instead, the governor became the unintended victim of an HOA Karen's reckless call. The irony was staggering. A petty neighborhood dispute had triggered an event that would shake the entire state. News spread instantly. Reporters swarmed the area. Headlines blared about a governor shot inside a private citizen's garage. And in the middle of it all, one man's life was turned upside down because a neighbor couldn't stand the sight of him opening his own property. Investigations followed, of course. The police scrambled to explain how such a catastrophic error could occur. The governor's security team demanded answers. And the homeowner? He was dragged into the spotlight, painted as if he had been hiding some dark secret in his garage. But the truth remained simple. All he ever did was try to live peacefully until Karen's obsession brought ruin to everything. What makes this story even more chilling is how preventable it all was. Had the HOA Karen minded her business, had she chosen to be a neighbor instead of a dictator, none of this would have happened. No police cars, no shouting, no gunfire, and certainly no governor bleeding inside a garage. But the damage was done. The homeowner's reputation was shattered. Strangers whispered rumors about him. Some thought he must have been plotting something against the governor. Others believed he was part of some conspiracy. None of it was true, but once a story like this hits the news cycle, the truth often gets drowned out by sensationalism. Days turned into weeks, and hearings began. Officials sat around tables demanding accountability. The governor's health updates became breaking news. And through it all, the homeowner sat in silence, wondering how a simple act, opening a garage door, could unravel into chaos that reached the highest levels of government. Karen, on the other hand, tried to play innocent. She denied exaggerating her call. She said she feared for the safety of the community. But recordings of the 911 call painted a different picture. Her tone wasn't one of fear. It was one of authority, almost excitement, as if she wanted to watch chaos unfold. The fallout didn't just end with legal hearings. The entire neighborhood became infamous. Property values dropped. People moved away, not wanting to live in the place known as the governor's shooting site. And the homeowner? He faced lawsuit after lawsuit, not because he did anything wrong, but because people wanted someone to blame. Still, one truth stood firm. None of this was his fault. It was Karen's call, Karen's lies, and Karen's obsession that triggered the chain of events. Yet, Karen didn't face the level of accountability many expected. She wasn't charged with attempted murder by proxy, though that's what her actions essentially invited. At best, she was criticized. At worst, she was defended by those who thought HOA authority justified anything. As time passed, the story remained etched in people's minds not just as a political scandal, but as a cautionary tale, a reminder of how fragile peace is when power is abused, even on the smallest scale. A neighbor who thinks she's in control can unleash consequences no one can contain. And for the homeowner, the experience left scars far deeper than headlines could capture. He learned that sometimes the real danger doesn't come from strangers or criminals. It comes from those who live right next door, hiding behind rules, titles, and false authority. The governor eventually recovered, though the incident became a stain on his administration. Questions about security, questions about policing, and questions about HOAs filled public debates. All because one call, fueled by ego, ignited a nightmare. To this day, people still shake their heads when they hear the story. They ask, how could something so absurd even happen? But it did, and the lesson is simple. Never underestimate the damage a single person can cause when they put pettiness above humanity. So, remember this story the next time you hear about HOA disputes or neighborhood drama. Behind the laughter and memes about Karens, there are real lives at stake, real consequences that can spiral out of control. Because once you invite chaos into a community, there's no telling who might get caught in the crossfire, even a governor.